Hi guys, so today I'm going to show you how to make a ridiculously highly secure web browser work in Debian Linux. So I guess first I should put a note in here about the intent of this. The intent is to allow people to protect their privacy and secure their systems, protect themselves from advertising, viruses, tracking, etc. Of course, I'm aware that there is, the possibility of nefarious intent here. People who would use this to, hide the fact that they do bad things or whatever. But, anytime you help the world, people, whatever, put something out there to help a bunch of people, you're inevitably going to help people you don't really want to help as well. That's true of any open source project, I think. So I just want to state, for the record, that this is designed to help people who want to protect their privacy and not have advertisers, Facebook, whatever, snoop on their browsing activity. This is also great for people who are in, situations where they're in, a regime or whatever that doesn't allow them to speak out, and, this can prevent them from hopefully getting in trouble. Of course, I never guarantee any security measure 100%, so, depending on your situation, of course, exercise the utmost caution when doing this kind of thing. Also, if you're hoping for a how to set up Tor, this is not the video for you. I'm not going to demonstrate Tor at all in this. However, if you set up the Tor browser, these steps can be done using that. I actually use a VPN solution for my browser, so I don't set mine up with Tor personally, generally speaking, because Tor, the trade-off with Tor is speed, and my VPN provider is good with speed. So, and again, there's a security trade-off there as well. Do you trust your VPN provider? So you have to be very, very careful and choosy when you select that sort of situation, whether you're going to do Tor, because there's inherent security risks with Tor too, because you're also trusting the nodes that you're bouncing through on the Tor network to not be nefarious, and that's pretty hard to do. I'm sure Tor goes through extremes to mitigate that, but you can never be 100% sure, is my point. But this particular video is going to focus a lot more on local security. I did a video sort of similar to this in the past where I showed how to set up, Firefox and do IP tables and stuff. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of a better sort of way of doing things in this video. It's updated. The last one I did, I think, targeted either Wheezy or Jesse. I don't even remember now, but it's pretty old school. This one, I haven't actually made a new video in quite some time, not since Debian 9 was released. And so this will be my first video in quite a while, so I'm pretty happy to be making it. For one, I finally found the time to do this, but for two, it's nice to update old content and bring it into a more current light, I guess. So some notes about the system we're going to be setting up. To follow this tutorial perfectly and get all features enabled, you're going to want to use Debian 9. That's the current distribution at the time of this video. That's stable. That's the stable distribution. I use the KDE environment. It's not 100% necessary, but there are some KDE specific steps in here. They will probably maybe translate to other desktop environments. I am not 100% sure on that because I tend to use KDE almost exclusively. And some of the features are specific to the features in KDE and modifying the behavior of KDE to make your browsing, well, you'll see when I get to that part. I'll explain more, but it may not even be necessary to do those steps on other desktop environments, is what I'm saying. They're just little extra niceties, I guess, but they won't prevent you from having the kind of ultimate browser setup. Okay, so the other thing you're going to want to know is that you'll want to use Firefox. I am not sure if this stuff can even remotely be replicated in Chrome. I know to some extent it can. I've tried it a little bit, but I've never gone anywhere near as far as I have with Firefox. Firefox is just a lot more potent when it comes to protecting your security. If you leave Firefox in its default state, it's kind of junk. But if you take the time to really mess with the settings on it and to put the right plugins in place and to do the right things to wrap it and to play with the command line options for it, you'll find out that the security in Firefox can be dramatically improved with a little tiny amount of effort. And I'll show you that later. So the other thing I want you to notice is that in this Debian build, which is a virtual machine, and it is pretty much stock. I have done very little to it. I installed Vim and some other things, but you'll notice that the browser that this comes with is Firefox EXR. You absolutely can keep that that way if you want, but it will. It could be beneficial if you want to upgrade to the newer version of the browser. But again, that's pretty optional. It's not 100% necessary to do that. So, you definitely don't have to. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to upgrade and use the absolute newest version of Firefox in Debian 9. It's pretty easy to do. All you got to do is do Firefox in your browser, and then .com, I think it is, and then just click download now, and you should get the prompt. Save the file, hit OK. Right. This is going to give you your download. Should be this Firefox 5802 tar.bz2. There'll always be bz2 for Firefox. It's just the way it is. If that scares you, don't worry about it. If you've installed Debian Linux, you have all the tools you need already at your fingertips with no effort needed at all to make this work. So there's going to be a little bit of terminal work here, so don't freak out. The end result is you will have a 100% GUI-based browser set up. And I'll explain everything as I go through it pretty in detail. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to CD, actually, you can CD into the downloads directory if you have a downloads directory, which if you set up your desktop environment normally through the CD, it should come with a downloads directory. ILS right now, I'll only have this one Firefox tar file in there. So what we're going to do is a tar file is just an extractable file. The bzip is the bz2 is the compression algorithm that was used. So all we're going to do is we're going to use sudo because we're going to extract it into a place that we do not normally have permissions to write. My Debian install, for the record, has su and sudo set up. So I gave it a password when I installed the operating system, so the root user was set up. And then I, after the fact, went in and installed sudo and added my user to the group. So that's already been done here. The point is you need to elevate to root to do this. So in my case, I'm going to use sudo Firefox 58. Firefox. Oh, I'm sorry. So sudo tar xvfj, and that's the important bit. X is extract, V is verbose because I like verbosity. F is for file, technically. You're supposed to put that last, but it doesn't matter. And the small j is the algorithm, bzip2. If you're doing a gzip, it would be Z. If you're doing an xzip, which is the other popular format, it would be a capital J. But for bzip2, we're only interested in the bz2, or in the little j at the end there. So then we're just going to give it our file, and then we're going to do a tag and a capital C, and we're going to point it at our op directory, because in Linux, the op directory is basically where you want to put things that you are, I guess you could think of it as side loading an application. If you're installing an out-of-repository application, that's where you want it to go. So you're just going to put your password in there to Elevate if you need to. If prompted, you're going to see it do that. If you get any errors, it's probably because you're not root or you've extracted it to the wrong place. Hopefully you didn't do any of that. You have to be careful when extracting things so that you don't end up with a tar bomb. The TAC-C kind of helps with that. So you're really not supposed to extract things as sudo, but because I gave it a target location, I'm pretty sure that's safe. I just happen to know the Firefox one is safe, but generally you don't want to extract things as sudo. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can always move it and extract it. You can always extract it normally to your downloads directory and then move the directory with the mv command. Anyway, in opt, you should have a Firefox folder now. If we cd into Firefox, you should have the Firefox binary listed in this folder, which is here. So that's the actual executable, which we can already actually launch, but we're not going to do that directly. What we're going to do now is we're going to make it so that when we type Firefox, we get the right browser. Because currently, if I close this, right, and I type Firefox in here, Firefox, you'll see that the old Firefox still comes up. You can tell because of the interface that it's the old one, and not the one that we want, right? So this is going to be the ESR release. So we can fix this, and it's pretty easy to do. All we have to do is cd into user, local, and bin. And then in here, we're just going to do an sudo tac, or I'm sorry, ln tac s for symlink. We're going to point it at that binary file I showed you just a minute ago. So opt Firefox /Firefox, right? And then when you ls now, you should get a small, you should get the Firefox symlink here, which will point at our binary. And now if we type Firefox, you'll notice that the new Firefox Quantum browser should launch. It doesn't look like it did, of course not. Why did that not launch? Let's see if I echo my path variable. User local bin's there, so let's see. Firefox. I bet I need to log out and log back in to make it happen. It shouldn't, but maybe it's pre-caching it. So let's log out and log back in. So yeah, log out. Okay. And log back in. And what should happen here is that when I type Firefox into this console, I should get Quantum. Okay, yeah, there we go. So the reason why it wasn't working before was because I hadn't logged out and logged back in for it to take effect, I guess. The reason this works is, if you remember when I echoed my path variable, right? The path variable tells the operating system where to find executables. And as you can see, user local bin is first and before user bin. So when I added my link there, it should pick up that it should point to the other Firefox. Now the other interesting bit is you'll notice that I have a Firefox ESR in my applications menu already. So it is possible to leave this alone. It's perfectly fine, and if you click it, it will absolutely still launch your ESR version of the browser, regardless of the fact that it's now pointing at the Quantum browser. So you can have them simultaneously installed. That's fine. What I do recommend is, later on I'll explain it, but I recommend setting up a particular profile for each so that you don't have plugin conflicts between versions. But I'll show you how to do that later on. But if you go to Edit Applications in KDE, if you just right click down here and then go to Edit Applications, you'll get this menu editor. And in this menu editor, this basically edits the links inside of your main menu. You can see here that you have a Firefox ESR web browser link. and this actually is using this specific command here to launch it, and that's why the ESR browser still functions normally. Now you may also notice that we are missing a standard Firefox link, which is not what we want. We want to have an easy link to click on to launch Firefox. So all we're going to do is just click New Item with the Internet menu up here selected. We're just going to click New Item, and then we're going to type Firefox. And over here in the description we can say web browser or whatever, it doesn't really matter. SCR, okay. For command we're going to say opt Firefox, and then for here this is just an icon. We're just going to click that guy. I could use the ESR icon, but I actually prefer to go into root and then go to opt and then Firefox and then browser. Which I accidentally double click there, but that's fine. And then into icons, and you'll have this Mozilla icon, and that'll give you the actual Quantum icon. You can save this, and you'll already have a launchable utility for Firefox now. So you can see you'll have two Firefox menu options here, Firefox and then Firefox ESR. And if I click Firefox, I will absolutely get the Quantum browser. So we are well on our way. So I'm going to go ahead and set that as the default browser. You can opt not to, it doesn't really matter. But for now I'm going to go ahead and set that way, and we're going to leave that alone because there's another application that we require. So I'm going to go back to our terminal here, and I'm going to use sudo apt install Firejail. We're going to require this for our jailing purposes. It's going to help a lot. Oops. Okay, so let's do yes. And just let that roll. And in the meantime, we're going to kill this browser. And we're going to go ahead and set up our second profile for our browser. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch a second terminal while that other one is doing its thing over there. And we're just going to type the word Firefox. We're going to do a space capital P, and then we're just going to press enter. This is going to give us this profile manager here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new profile. I'm going to give it a next, and I'm going to name it whatever I want. In this case I'm just going to go with jail. That's fine. It doesn't really matter. You can set up an extra folder or whatever if you want. I don't really recommend it. Just leave it normal. So what's going to happen is, at this point, you'll see now that I have a default and a jail. You want to leave default highlighted typically. It really doesn't matter too much, but what you may want to do is, for now, exit and then edit your link here. Add a tag P, capital P, and then default. What that'll do is it'll force that particular icon here to launch your default profile and not your jailed profile. So what we've essentially done is we've created a jailed profile. So now if you click on this one here, you'll see that you still have your, still updating the menu from when I clicked on it, I guess. Okay. Oh, it's because it's installing. Okay, no worries, it should stop. Okay, so if I click on this, it's still going to launch my standard Quantum browser. You'll see that it does actually still work just fine. Doesn't hiccup, doesn't have any problems. So that particular trick there is going to be useful for later. But right now, we're just going to leave it like that. And we're going to go ahead and work on our jailed profile. So what we can do to launch our jailed one is we can type jail after it, and we'll get our jailed version of the browser. And this will launch it so that it's launched off the command prompt like that. You can absolutely create a profile launcher by setting up a menu option for it and pointing it at tag P, and you can also do the tag P jail, but it will be less necessary and kind of optional later. But the important thing is that you set up your jail appropriately like this and get a separate profile. And just to show you what all this looks like, for those of you who don't know where the Mozilla profile is stored, in your home directory, if I do a pwd here, you see home Joe. In here, there's going to be a folder called .mozilla. So if I cd into .mozilla, it's a hidden folder. That's what the dot means, right? And in here, you'll see there's a Firefox folder. And in there, you'll see we have two of these funny looking little folders here. They have these crazy characters and then a dot and then a name. And this name is the profile name. So that's your default profile and that's your jail profile. So that's what's going to happen there. That's basically what that means, is it separates everything. Now the interesting thing about this is it separates literally everything about the browser. Your plugins are separate. Your preferences choices are separate. Everything about the browser is separate now. So you literally need to configure your browser twice. The default profile will be your normal standard I don't care who's watching me profile, for when you want to do stuff that, you know, you just want to get something done. You don't want to worry about all the security layers. But if you want to do something and you feel like you need the extra protection, you really don't want people to know what you're looking at or what you're doing, you want to really protect your privacy at this point, you can launch your jailed one and be in your jailed profile. I'll give you a little bit more of a rundown on that a little bit later as we move into getting the jailed profile really set up. But for now, let's go ahead and do the precursor configurations. We're just going to harden the browser a little bit. So remember, this is our jailed profile. So you're still going to have a lightweight profile. So for those of you going, holy cow, these permission settings are going to be crazy, I can't live like this, you have another browser, another Firefox that can be launched right next to it. You don't have to close one and then open the other. They'll be able to exist side by side and they won't be able to crisscross. So let's go into preferences. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to scroll down here and let's see, where's the first major one? What I like to do is always ask where to save the file. Why do I like to do that? Well, I like to do that because then I can change the name of the file when it downloads so that it doesn't have funny characters or messed up weirdness in it. Normally that's not an issue because it downloads to your downloads folder and then you can just manipulate it as you want. This is going to download it into a jail, and you'll have to extract it out of the jail, which I'll show you how to do later on. By making sure you're able to manipulate the file name before that happens, you'll make your life a lot easier. And you'll see why a little bit later. So I highly recommend selecting always ask where to save the files. Now you can absolutely go back and change these settings later, but there's a trick to it. I'll explain later as we get through this, what the situation there is. If you want to be able to play DRM content like Netflix in this browser, you're going to want to check that box. Otherwise, leave it unchecked. That's up to you. I don't necessarily see it as a security risk, but feel it out. It depends on what you want. For now, I'll just leave it checked so you can see, you know. I don't even know that I have access to DRM content anymore to really do that because I'm weeding it out, so I don't know that I can demonstrate it, but it will work. So another thing you want to do is you do not want to check for updates in this browser. So just set that to never and don't let it ever update your search engines. I don't know why they do that, but it drives me crazy. Performance, leave alone. I prefer to have it search for text when I start typing. That's a personal preference and it's up to you. Your searches, what I recommend you do here is leave it on this single bar up here. Switch this over to DuckDuckGo and delete every search engine that is not DuckDuckGo. Remember, these settings are independent of your primary browser. So if you don't like DuckDuckGo for general searching when you're not being paranoid, then don't use it. This setting is specific to your jailed browser. So you can have DuckDuckGo available in this browser, but you don't necessarily need it available in the other browser. Or maybe you have it available, but Google's your default in your other browser. And that's perfectly fine. That will work. Let's move on to privacy and security. So in privacy and security, I prefer to tell it to not to remember logins and passwords for websites, but it really won't matter. And the reason it won't matter is because even if it remembers them, everything's going to be stored in a jail that's stored in memory, and as soon as you close the browser, the jail will get destroyed, thus all the passwords that it's remembering will be destroyed along with it. If you want it to remember a password in particular, you need to leave this checked. You need to browse to the site, set the password, have it remember the password, and then launching it this way where you can make changes and then close the browser and reopen it in the jail, and then you'll have it set and it'll remember the password. I'll explain that again a little bit later on, but I prefer it never to remember passwords on my secure browser. It doesn't make sense to not. Your history settings are literally pointless. It doesn't even matter what you set here because it's just going to delete it all anyway. So, you know, I don't care about these three settings. They're kind of irrelevant. Your browsing history is not a big deal. Bookmarks you won't really be using as much in this unless you just kind of set them up preemptively. Open tabs I do like it to search for. That's just me. I leave my caching pretty much default. Site data I leave default. It won't be a big deal. It's all jailed anyway. Tracking protection is always, even though it won't be a big deal for this because we're going to launch it in private mode no matter what. I also always select always here just because for the same reason. Accessibility services is something that I generally disable. Unless you need them, you probably should disable them. And then down here, you want to uncheck your Firefox send technical data and run studies. And then check the prevent accessibility if you want, because it's going to prompt you to restart Firefox as soon as you do that. So we're going to do that. It'll relaunch Firefox just fine. And now we're going to make a little tweak that will prevent us from being highly aggravated later on. We're just going to come up here to our search bar. We're going to type about.config. In about.config, oh, sorry, not about.config, it's about:config. About:config, right? And then in here, we're just going to accept the risk. We're going to come up here, and we're going to type default. And then we're going to search through here for check default browser. And we're just going to switch that to false. So it's browser.shell.check default browser, just like that. You can actually search for that up here if you want. I just remember it's default and it's in here. Anyway, browser shell check default browser, switch that to false. Regardless of how you set it, if you tell it I want to do default browser or whatever, still set that setting to false. Always, always, always set that to false. Otherwise, when the browser exists in the jail, it will drive you crazy because whether or not it's the default, it will think it's not, and it will constantly prompt you. To stop that prompt, you need to set this right here. That's the only way to stop it. Otherwise, it will irritate you into not wanting to use your jail anymore, and that's not the goal. Okay, so now that we've gotten that far, we're pretty much through the configurations, at least the basic configurations. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go here and to add-ons, and we're just going to grab a couple of add-ons real quick. So the first plugin we're going to grab is extension we're going to grab is pretty obvious, NoScript. You're absolutely crazy if you're not using NoScript. It's extremely important. The next one we're going to grab is uBlock Origin, so uBlock. And then just install that one. And then the last one we're going to grab is Privacy Badger. I used to use things like Ghostry or Cookie Monster because that used to be a great plugin, but they don't exist anymore. So the best way to get rid of trackers is to use Privacy Badger. Privacy Badger may not be as important because this is a jailed browser, but I prefer to prevent those things from ever even loading so that they can't get any information on you at all. Just, you know, a personal preference, but you can feel it out if you don't like it. Now what I like to do at this point is I'll customize my browser, and I'm just going to get rid of these guys here. I'm going to get rid of home because who needs the home? I prefer this on this side. You can do it however you want. I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't like that there. I stick that up here, and that up here. Personal preferences, you can manipulate that however you want. Why did I get rid of all forms of bookmarking and, you know, sidebars and etc.? Because this browser isn't going to remember them anyway. It won't care. So, why show it? Besides, you can always just click here and then go to library, and then you can get to your bookmarks that way. If you really want a bookmarks toolbar, feel free to set it up. I personally hate the things. They drive me crazy because they're in the way. I like clean looking, pristine interfaces. Anyhow, so at this point we have a pretty locked down, pretty hardcore profile. This is good stuff right here. So now we don't want this changing at all ever. And it would also be very helpful also if we could identify very quickly that this was our secure browser. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to themes, and we're just going to search, and I prefer, you can use whatever you want, but I like purple for this. So we're just going to go here, and there's like a dark, really dark purple, this guy here maybe, a purple darkness, or maybe one of these. Let's see, what do we got? Oh, there you go, that's it, solid purple. That's a good one. So we'll just put that on. I like that. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I don't like the way KDE's default look is here, so we're gonna tweak some KDE stuff here. So let's go into System Settings, and then to I think it's Window Management. No, it's not Window Management. What is it? Application Style? Yeah, this might be it. Bear with me just a second. I can't remember where everything is now. KDE has like, I don't know, a billion options. I think it's window decorations actually, now that I think about it. It is border size, no borders. No borders. And then in here, add handle to resize with no border. Okay, that'll make the windows look a little less stupid. Another thing I like to do is if you have compositing enabled, come in here and do dim and active. Unfortunately, on this nested system, don't have wobbly windows and all that good stuff, but KDE has some pretty nice effects if you've got full hardware acceleration set up. I just haven't taken the time on this thing. But dim and active is a really nice one because what it does is with the borders not there, you can see that you can still distinguish the windows very well. So it's kind of a setting I like to use. Anyway, so let's get on to the important stuff, and that is color. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to take this Breeze here and we're going to edit it. And I'm going to make 3 different copies of Breeze. So what I like to do for this personally is I like to come down here and you see where it says active title bar. I like to take this and I like to pick screen color and I like to make it match just like that. So that means I got to take my text and I got to go all the way dark with it. And then I do inactive title bar and I set that to the exact same color, and my inactive title bar text I darken it up but not quite as much, and then I just save that and I just call it Breeze Custom or something, whatever you want to call it. Now the next thing I do is for my active title bar, I like to set a nice green color like my background here. That'll work. And inactive, I set a nice darker green color, kind of like this over here, something like that. All right, there you go. All right, cool. And what I call that is Firefox. This will all make sense, and you don't have to keep these colors. You can change them however you want. And then I'll do one more, and this time I'm going to set it to this purpley color here. And we just set that. And then this one will do the same for, set that purple color. And we're just going to change the text back to a whiter color because, you know, purple won't work really well for the, you know, for the text being black. It's just not as good. So anyway, there we go. That should do that. And we'll call this, well, actually Firefox Secure. Just like that. Okay. So now that should give us 3 different color schemes that we've just added. Okay, so if you look, we have our Breeze Custom, Breeze Firefox, and Breeze Firefox Secure. All 3 of them are there, and we're good to go. So now we're going to select Custom as our default and check it, and all of our title bars should go white, which is awesome, and that's exactly what we want. And for the rest, we're going to do something interesting. So for our secure browser, we're just going to right click up here. We're going to click on this. We're going to go to Window Manager, or not Window Manager, I'm sorry, Special Application Settings. And in here, I'm just going to OK that. Check window matching. Window title, we're going to put substring match in there, and we're going to do private. Private, I think browser. Let's actually do this. New private window. Yeah, private browsing, that's what it is. Okay, so let's go back to our application setting here. Private browsing. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Now, we're going to come over here to Appearance and Fixes. We're going to set our title bar scheme. We're going to tell it to force, and we're going to tell it to force Firefox secure. Okay. And then we're just going to close that. And now if we open our private window, it doesn't look like it did it. Might not have worked. Let's check what happened there. Ooh, actually, I like that Window Manager Settings, because Window Manager Settings has the setting for it in Window Rules. We should have Application Firefox here. Let's modify that. Application Settings for Firefox. Let's actually change that rule name because I don't like that. We'll change it to Firefox Secure. Substring match. Window class, navigator, Firefox. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Really, we don't need anything other than normal window. Checked. Okay, anyway, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the same setting again, except we're going to do special application settings, and we're going to change our window matching so that it's normal window only, and we're going to just set this to Firefox, just like so. Change our appearances so that we force our Firefox title bar. We're going to OK that. We're going to right click on this. We're going to go back to our window manager settings here. And then we're going to go down here to rules, and we're going to make sure Firefox Secure is absolutely in front of Firefox, like that. Okay? We're going to OK that. Now I'm just going to close these browser windows out. Those tabs. Okay, so let's go ahead and start setting up our jail, because now we've got this thing like really just kind of rocking. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to enter a line that will make your Firejail work really, really well. So the first bit we're going to do is we're going to type Firejail. That's what we want to launch it with. We're going to give it a name. Tac name equals Firefox is probably good. Firefox, okay. Now we're going to do tac private. Now this is kind of a big deal here, but don't worry, when you actually go to launch this on a normal basis, you'll never have to type this command in again. We're going to set it up so that it's automatic. Anyway, we're going to do home. We're going to set this equal to .mozilla. Okay. Now these command settings so far. Firejail is the application that's going to wrap Firefox in a jail. It's going to jail it. Tac name equals Firefox is going to set a name for your jail so that you can reference it later, like when you're extracting files from it. Private home, what that's going to do is it's going to force it to sandbox the home folder in its own deal. Essentially, it's going to create a sandbox in memory, and it's going to hold that folder in there. So that's what that's going to do for you. That's what's really responsible for making your stuff very secure. So now we're going to do this, no exec equals temp. And you can play with this too and add more of them if you want. So if you want, to make no non-executable directories, you can play with that setting. You can also do no groups so that groups don't get permissions there. You can also do no none wprivs, which also gets rid of privileges that can be used. If you have AppArmor compiled in and you're using AppArmor, you can absolutely do AppArmor. Setting up AppArmor is beyond the scope of the video, but if you give it that command, it will make use of it. You can also do this, DNS equals, and AppArmor, by the way, is an SE Linux competitor, or SE Linux-like solution. And this is a DNS setting that will force it, no matter what your DNS settings are for your system, to use the Google DNS servers. 8.8.9.9, I think it is. No, sorry, it's not 9.9, it's 4.4. 8.8.4.4. Okay, so what that's going to do is, like, let's say you're on a laptop and you take your laptop around to, like, your friend's house or to a hotel, and you connect up to the network, and if somebody's running a malicious DHCP server on that network that points to a poisoned DNS server, it could serve you an IP address and some network information that's poison. It's not good. It can make, you go to a site that looks an awful lot like Facebook, but it's not Facebook. It can look, it can look an awful lot like your bank's website, but it's not your bank. It's a site designed to collect your login credentials. Or something like that. So what this does is, even if somebody puts a malicious DNS server out there or a DHCP server out there, it forces the browser to use Google's DNS servers no matter what. And so that will allow you to essentially be able to escape that situation, and be nice and secure, hopefully. Of course, you can feel that out, swap them with whatever servers you want. If you have your own deal you want to use, it's absolutely a thing you can do. Okay, now the next bit we're going to do is we're going to type Firefox, because that's the application we want to launch, and we're going to give Firefox some switches. Now the interesting thing here is, if you look at the Firefox switches, like if you type Firefox tac help, I think, you'll notice that they all start with 2 tacs. But when we're launching them with Firejail like this, we want to only use 1 tac. I don't really know why that is, but that's just the case. It's what you want. So what we're doing now is we're giving Firefox a switch no remote. What that's going to do is it's going to allow Firefox to launch multiple instances of itself. It basically means that instead of launching a new tab in an existing Firefox instance, we're going to launch a new instance of Firefox altogether. We're also going to give it tac private window, which is going to enable in private browsing all the time. Anytime you launch this, it's going to start in private mode. And then we're going to give it a tac capital P and the word jail, because that is our jail. Now, if we hit enter right now, it should launch our hang on. I am unsure what's going on here. Any file state will be lost. That's fine. Create blacklist violations are logged. Error cannot confine the application using AppArmor. Okay, it's because I don't have AppArmor installed on this system. So rather than set AppArmor up, which is sudo apt install AppArmor, I'm just going to delete this from the command. And this should allow us to launch Firefox. So what's happened here is you'll notice we have a Firefox browser that launches in private with all of our plugins enabled and our theming. You'll also notice that if I take this and I come in here and I say open preferences, right? And in preferences, I change this to show a blank page on start, right? And then let's say, just shrink this down a little bit here. Let's say I close the browser, right? Or actually, first of all, let me do this. Let's open that back up. We'll come back in here. We'll do preferences again, and you can see that my setting is still there, right? Now, if I close this browser and I reopen the browser, okay, now you can look at that setting again, and you'll notice that it has been reset. This browser is essentially in read-only mode. You can change your settings for the session, but as soon as you close the browser, your session is dead and all your settings get returned back. You'll also notice that this particular system here is saying that Firefox is not our default browser. It does not matter. It's because it's in a jail that it thinks that. It can't check for sure. It doesn't know anything about the outside world. So that's why we disabled that setting before. And that's why you also see that this is not checked, right? Why did we disable it in there rather than uncheck this? Because if Firefox is your default browser and it thinks it is, then this checkbox is kind of grayed out. I don't think you can actually uncheck it. So kind of annoying. Anyway, let's go ahead and finish out our build of this particular browser. But before I actually do that, I do want to show you this. So let's launch the clean version of Firefox, the non-jailed version. See, now you can see here I have a browser and a browser, and they look an awful lot alike. You know, as far as they're both Firefox, but they also look an awful lot different. As you can clearly see our custom profile. You can clearly tell it's our secure browser because it's got the purple title bars. You can clearly tell that it's our secured browser because it's in private browsing. And if I go into our add-ons here, you can see that this guy has the plugins and extensions that we added, whereas this guy absolutely does not. So if I go to add-ons, and then extensions and plugins and themes, it's completely different. It's a completely different playground. So now you have a custom profile in a sandbox set up to utilize NoScript and all kinds of boss security measures. If you've configured Tor or a VPN, you're even more secure. And what's really cool is if you have a VPN or a proxy or something that you're using to mask your IP address, you can absolutely set your proxy or VPN to be in different locations. Like if your VPN comes with a browser plugin that lets you set your location at the browser level, then what you can do is you can set your location in each browser, and each browser will absolutely have a different WAN IP. So if you go to what is my IP in each browser will show its own unique IP address. So yeah, it's a very, very cool setup. There is one thing I kind of forgot to do. So when you go to the new page like this, it doesn't really matter because this is the private browser, so it's not really going to be an issue. But one of the things I like to do in my browser is disable all the garbage that comes on the new page. So right here you can see you've got like this page of basically ads and it's nasty looking. If we come over here, we can just do this. And all of a sudden it's beautiful. You can leave top sites if you really want. These are basically just sites you visit regularly. They're initially populated with garbage, but you know they become the sites you visit regularly, or you can just disable them entirely. Whatever the case, it's fine. You'll also notice that if I come up here and I type, you know, food or whatever, you can see that I've got Google. If I come up here and I type food, oops, well, I didn't spell food correctly because I fat fingered it, but you can see that it's launched in DuckDuckGo. So your browser's search engines are independent and manipulated. So if you have a non-secured one and a very highly secured one. So it's like you almost have two different networks for your browser, or it's almost as if they're two independent browsers. The other thing that's really cool, which I'll get to in just a second here, is this. Let's take our Firejail browser, and we're just going to make an icon for it the same way we did the other stuff or the other browsers. We're just going to go to Edit Applications. We're going to come down here to Internet. We're going to hit New Item. We're going to do Firefox, and then in parentheses just put secure. Or anything, it doesn't matter. I just prefer secure. S-E-C-U-R-E, yeah. Okay, and then in here we're just going to type Firefox. Our secure web browser. Here you go. Yeah, that's a good one. Secure SEC web browser. Doesn't really matter. It's just a description. Our command. We're just going to take the command that we typed here, this Firejail command, and we're going to paste it in here. And then we're going to need to set an icon for it. I mean, we don't have to, it's kind of optional, but it would look really ugly without an icon. So we're just going to go in here and we're going to type Firefox icons, right? And we'll just grab an icon. I am kind of partial to this flat fox guy here, so let's copy that. We'll save it, actually. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's click it and get the better version of it because we want the big image. So it's important when you pick an icon that you get one that has this sort of meshy background, because that's sort of image code for transparency, and that's going to be nice. So let's go ahead and save this image. And I like, Firefox ping PNG or whatever, but I prefer Firefox secure so we know what it is. And what we'll do is we'll just stick it in our home directory for now, or wherever's convenient for you, but we're going to be moving it. So we're going to stick it in our home directory. So now we should have it there. We'll kill our browser off. All I did was Control-C that. You can manually close it however you want to do it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do sudo mv firefox secure.png, and we're just going to move it to opt. Firefox, oh, I'm sorry, not Firefox. Browser, and then icons. We'll just move it in there. Okay. One other thing we might want to do is if Firefox has an update available, it's not going to allow us to update it easily the way it is right now. So what I like to do is this. If you look at this, if you do an ls-tac-al, you'll see that Firefox is currently owned by root. So what I like to do is create a group. So I do group sudo actually group add Firefox, and then I do sudo ch group tac-r Firefox, and then what I do is I do sudo chmod plus g plus x or w Firefox. tac-r Firefox, like so. Should work. And now if I ls-tac-al, you should see that Firefox owns the folder, and it now has group access to write to that folder. So, and if you go into Firefox, it should have the same access to write every single file and folder below it, which will allow you to update your browser if you're a member of the Firefox group. So let's go ahead and become a member of the Firefox group by doing sudo usermod tac-a-g. Now, with this, make sure you add that little a. If you miss that little a, you're going to hate yourself later. Firefox, and then the username. What that will do is, which it may not reflect now because, yes, it does show it now. It will allow you to modify files in the folder. Now, if I try to touch a file right now, it's not going to work, right? So if I do touch test, okay, permission denied. Why? Because I haven't logged out and logged back in. So if I sudo to myself, actually sudo so I don't have to type my password. If I sudo myself and then try to touch a file, you'll see that it works now. Why? Because I sudo to myself. It's kind of a way of cheating the system and logging in without actually logging out. Nowhere else on the system will it work, only in this shell. But if I want to save myself the trouble of logging in, logging out just to test it, make sure it works, I can do that. Now let's remove that test file. But I should have right permissions there now. And what that will do is it will make it so that when Firefox releases a new browser, I can update. Now you'll remember in the other browser we told it not to update. And we did that on purpose. That there was a method to that. Because we want the non-secure browser to control the updates, the one that's not jailed. And the reason why is it's really up to you. It's not that big of a deal one way or the other. But for me, I think the best option is to have the standard, normal, non-ridiculously over-the-top jailed web browser write files to the system. It's just too hard to open every last little thing up to the jail. And personally, opening every last little thing up to the jail makes the jail less secure. So, in my opinion, it's better to try to just allow this to search for updates and find them, and the other browser does not need to. I would still uncheck automatically update search engines, though, because that's just terrible. But, again, you know,
with your standard browser, you can configure it any way you like, whatever your preferences are. Of course, I have my security preferences for that, and I recommend that, you know, you make it as hardened as you can, because there's no reason to have like a stupidly unsecured browser on your system. The point is to have a decently secured browser that you use normally and a ridiculously over-the-top secured browser that you use in situations where you really want to make sure you're good. If you know you're going to be browsing on a site that you probably shouldn't be looking at, or if you're worried something might be a virus or something, you can check it out with your jailed browser a little bit more safely than you can your non-jailed browser, if you catch my drift there. So, you know, it's a good way to test things. You basically get like a little test bed, pretty much. So I'm still a little bit sad that our trick with the window decoration did not work properly. So let's see if we can't do something about that. Okay, so what I actually think is happening here is I think it's actually maybe working like it should. I just think for some reason it did not save the color changes properly to each scheme. So let's look at our color schemes real quick and make sure they're actually right. And see, that is exactly what's happened. It did not save our color schemes correctly. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is fix the color schemes. So let's go ahead and grab our colors. The light green, is that the light green? I don't think that's light enough. Let's go with the lighter green than that. Too light. There we go, that's better. Okay, grab the light green and then the dark green. Too dark, yeah, something like that. Okay, now let's change our text around a little bit so it's brighter and whiter, I guess. And brighter and whiter. Okay. And we'll save that. We'll OK that. Overwrite it. Close it. Okay. Now, for the secure one, let's edit that one. Colors. Come down here. Let's launch our browser. And you can already see the effect up here, right? And here's why I like this. I'll show you. So if we go to add-ons and then to themes, up here we type Debian Softwaves. We should get the Debian Softwaves theme, which might need to go to see all. Okay, here we go. Debian Softwaves. Now, if we install that, we get this lovely little theme with a sort of pseudo-matching title bar. And when you click off of it, the darker color will match it. If you really want, you can also take that eyedropper on this theme. That's what I normally do, and pick the color that way. And I think it matches a little better when you do that. But that's just kind of a cool little way of doing it. So for our secured browser, what we're going to do is we'll come in here and we'll grab our, oh, I'm sorry, we never finished making our icon for that, did we? So let's go ahead and set that icon up. Op, Firefox, Chrome, or I'm sorry, not Chrome, it's root op Firefox browser icons, and then Firefox secure, because we moved it there, and you'll see our icon. If you save that, that should give us our icon. So I kind of got off on a little tangent there. Hopefully that doesn't confuse everybody, because I don't really want to do a whole lot of editing for this video. So I guess it is what it is. Anyway, so at this point what we can do is launch that guy to give it a test for one. So let's go ahead and launch that. Okay, Firefox secure, there it is. Okay, now you can see that that's done. All right, now let's come up here and we'll do active title bar text. Sorry, active title bar. Let's take that and we'll grab our screen color and let's pick that and save that sucker. I'll set our text to white so that we don't end up with unreadable text, because that would be terrible. Let's set our inactive color. and I prefer to keep it the same, but you can, you know, do what you want there, adjust it, make it darker, lighter, whatever. I'll go with a slightly darker shade of white. We'll just OK that and overwrite it, and then we'll close that. And you should see automatically right now that we have a nice browser that is very recognizable. And what's really cool about the jail now is when you go to edit the jail, so you can see here that I've got the jail open and then I've got a normal browser open like that, right? So now if I come over here and I do Firefox TAC-P jail, that puts it into a sort of edit mode. So now I can change the settings and they will stick. And what you'll notice about this, what's really cool about this, is a browser that is jailed and is ready for you to browse with will have this dark purple top bar. A browser that is supposed to be jailed but is in edit mode will still have the jail theming, but will have this bright green bar letting you know I better not type into this or use it unless I want to be exposed. And I also could be breaking my jail. And then a normal browser that is unsecured or less secured, you know, the still secure but not quite paranoid browser, will be set up to look like this with your default theming. And there you have it. There is one other really cool thing that you can do with this. So if we go back into our application settings, I'll just tell that to shut up, it keeps popping up. It's a little, this is what this is dialogue, I guess. Anyway, so in here what you can do is you can actually go to arrangement and access, and you can actually tell it to skip all of these. You can force it to skip all of these. And what's cool about that is if you have like a window manager that allows pop-ups like alt-tabbing or whatever, right? Okay, so what that'll do is when you're switching windows like this, your browser, your secured browser will not be in there. Now note, your unjailed one will, because the secured browser is only detected by this guy right here, right? Private browsing, which actually you can make that a little better by going to Window Manager Settings, and then down here to Window Rules, to Firefox Secure, and Modify, and then in here, instead of doing private browsing like that, make it look like the other other side of it. Because this will this bit here is the window is like what's actually being displayed, so that's going to change. This bit over here is what is actually in use, right? That will always be appended to the page name, right? So you can do Mozilla Firefox like that to make it very specific, so that, you know, if a page has the word private on it, it won't color it wrong. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out how to write a special character or something up here that I could grep for or whatever to search for to always match the right thing. But, you know, it's just something something I haven't figured out quite how to do yet. Now, of course, this process could always be improved upon. I'm sure there are things that we can do to make it better. But you know, hopefully this gets you pretty close to where you want to be. I think it's certainly better than what I was doing in the past. But, you know, it's pretty fantastic in my opinion. But what's really cool about this, right, is if you open your browser back up, you can search for Firefox, and you've got options now. You've got your ESR browser, you've got your standard, your new Quantum browser, and then you got your ridiculously over-the-top secure browser, which all these settings should actually work with the Firefox ESR. Of course, the GUI will be a bit different, so you'll have to feel it out, but you can do it. But if you launch Firefox Secure, you'll notice also that you can launch Firefox Secure again, and it will absolutely put it up there, and it won't complain. there's even a step further that we can take this if we really want to get paranoid. This is sort of the last threshold for what you can do. So right now, right, I can take this and I can copy this, and then I can come over here and I should be able to paste that, and you can see that happen, right? Okay. So these things are not 100% segregated just yet. We have not really achieved full segregation. Okay, and that's kind of what we want. We want the full segregation effect. So what we can do, if we can make it work, let's see if I can get this line back out of here. So what we can do, and this is actually really cool when you want to play with the line, is you just copy this out of here and then do Control-Shift-V, paste it in the terminal. So if you really want to be psychotic about it, other than enabling AppArmor, you can also do this. x11 equals xorg. And what that will do is it will actually create a nested rule set. Basically, it'll run it as an untrusted application in xorg. So it'll lock down the X server. There are even more gnarly versions of that you can run to really make it crazy. But what you'll notice is that, actually, now that I've got it set up that way, let me put it back in here. And then, so if I paste that line back in, after I copied it from there, what we'll do is, I'll do Firefox, okay, here you go. So let's do something that's outside of the jail. Okay. So here, you can already see it working because, okay. So, oh yeah. Okay, so the reason it's not showing up that the Firefox is there is because I've told it to skip the taskbar. Okay, so let's go through here and let's tell it to unskip the taskbar at least, because we need one way to locate them. So skip taskbar, that's what we'll do. Alright. Now let's do p-kill Firejail. Alright. That should give me back my... I should kill all the browsers, alright? So now I should get a new Firefox here. And there we are. Now unfortunately I can't figure out how to get the KDE to keep the icon for the private one. But it's, you know, it's fine. So here, we're going to copy this, right? Now you can see that I can paste that right there. But to a browser that's not in the jail, no dice. Can't paste it. It's sort of one of those things that I don't know that everyone will like. But you can see that I can paste stuff there. But like if I try to paste back across in the jail, that works. But if I try to take something out of the jail, it doesn't work. So that's what you need to figure out if you're okay with. Because, you know, but the cool thing about it is by nesting the X server like that, though, you prevent things like keyloggers from affecting you, or screen capture utilities from affecting you as easily, because they're running as untrusted X apps, so they don't have the privileges that other X apps do. The other thing is if you read up on it, it can cause things to crash. You can also run it in a nested Zephyr X server, or various there are various methods, and if you do man Firejail, you can look it up. But if you run it nested like that, you can there are different pros and cons to it. Some of them, like, you'll end up with a window that's not resizable, and other weird things like that. So I think this is the best one to run it on because it's the easiest and requires the fewest trade-offs but it's probably also the least secure of all the different methods if you really want to go nuts with the X11 security, or if the Xorg security, whatever. But that should do it. That, I think, concludes this video. That ought to get you to be pretty darn secure at this point. And if you mix this with maybe, you know, instead of using the Firefox browser, you use the Tor browser or something like that, you could really, you know, you could really take it pretty far and do some pretty gnarly security stuff with your browser. But at this point, I would probably feel comfortable taking this browser to just about any site on the internet and knowing full well that I'll be fairly secure. Data mining will be shut down by NoScript. Ad blocking will take care of mostly everything else. You've got your privacy badger for tracking protection, and everything runs in a jail, so anything that slips past all that isn't going to get very far because it'll sit in the jail, and as soon as you close the browser, the jail will be gone. That's just what it is. So there is one other thing that I think I should probably show you. So before we finish the video out, so if I Google like google.com, right, which I have to go to because this thing's set to DuckDuckGo, and I Google, you know, Firefox icons, right, like I did before. And let's say I want to grab a different icon. Let's say I like this icon this time. So I want to grab this icon and I want to download it and save it. So let's do save image as, right? Now you'll notice it's going to Joe Downloads, and it's called Black Fox Red World. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten this down to just black.png for now, because I want to do this for demonstration purposes, and like I said, I want to make this easier to do. So at this point, if you save that, it says it's there. It says it's completed, right? But if I pop open a file manager and I look in my downloads, there is not a file named black.png anywhere near here. It's not a thing, right? Let's pop open a web browser and let's browse to /.downloads. Why is that file not there? It's not there because it doesn't live there. It lives in a jail. So let's do Firejail. I think it's tac list. Should list all of our jails, and you can see we've got one here by the name of Firefox. So let's do Firejail tac get equals Firejail. Let's point it at ~downloads/black.png. I'm sorry, it's not Firejail, it's Firefox, Firefox. There we go. Now you can see black.png is there. So let's see if I want to upload a file. Like let's say I'm on Firefox and I'm on Facebook with this and I want to upload a picture. I would use put. So it's the same thing. I would just use put instead of get. And what I'll do is I'll touch test. I'll do Firejail tac fire put equals Firefox, and then we'll give it the file name, which is test, and then we'll go where we want to put it. We want to put it in ~downloads. We're going to call it test.txt. Okay, that should have done it. So now if I come over here and I look in my downloads folder in the jail, which it won't show anything because it doesn't open the jail that way, it's there though. Let's see, how can I upload that? Let's go maybe Pastebin. Does that allow file uploading? I don't know if it does or not. No. I don't know how to test file uploading. File upload test. upload a file. Browse. There we go. Okay, so if I go to Home, Downloads, now you can see I've got test.txt available to me, whereas before I would not have. You can also see this Firefox 58 is not there, so if I wanted to put that in the jail so that I could upload it, I would do this. So let's do this. So instead of test, we're just going to do ~downloads / Firefox tac58.0.2.tar.bz2, right? And we're going to come over here and we're just going to change this name to Firefox.tar.bz2 for convenience sake, right? And you can see automatically it's there, right? So that is how you push and pull from your Firejail. And that's probably it. That's all you really need to know. Yeah. So that is the gist of the browser. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope this helps people. I hope that nobody does evil with this and that it makes it so that people can protect their privacy and their data. And if you manage to follow this tutorial, especially on a different distribution other than Debian, in which your mileage may vary, congratulations, that's awesome. Enjoy.